Manchester District Council and the Vale of Whitehorse District Council Joint Audit and Governance Committee on Tuesday, 16th of September 2025. I am Councillor Moki Khan and I will be chairing this meeting. This meeting is being held at our office in Abbey House in Abingdon. Voting members are here in person as required, but officers and public speakers are able to join us remotely via Microsoft Teams. The meeting is being recorded and will be available on our council's media channels after the meeting. I'm just going to go through some housekeeping announcements. Evacuation procedure. In the event of an emergency, please can you evacuate the building by the nearest exit, which is in the corridor immediately to the right of this meeting room, and stand at the assembly point 9 in the outside area beyond the fire exit. On arriving at this meeting, you should have read the emergency evacuation procedure and signed the fire register. Please inform Democratic Services if you have not done that yet. For those joining remotely, when you're not speaking, please ensure your microphone is muted and the camera is turned off. Please can everyone ensure that their mobile phones and any other devices are switched off to silent during the meeting. And as a modern council, both our officers and members will be using the electronic devices throughout the meeting. If councillors want to speak or participate in the debate, please raise your hand and I will call upon you and ask you to speak when it's your turn. For some motions or recommendations, which may be council specific, only councillors from that council can vote on that particular motion. I will let you know when that is and when it's necessary. Just to make my life a bit easier, and I know there's a few new members, can you just turn your name tag so I can actually see them? It makes it a little bit easier. Thank you very much. Perfect. So yeah, we've got quite a lot on the agenda. So first thing to do is apologies.
We've had no apologies for absence. Yeah.
Thank you. The next item is item 3, and that's the minutes of the last meeting, which were held on the 1st of July 2025, and it's pages 5 to 11. What I'll quickly do is just page through them, see if there's any comments or questions. Page 1, 2, 3, 4. That's it. Any comments on those? 5. Oh, sorry, there's 5 and 6. That's no comments or questions. Okay, I'm going to propose those minutes are true record. Do I have a seconder?
I'm happy to second.
Thank you, Councillor Pigott. Those in favour, raise your hand. Abstentions? Against? Okay, that's clearly passed. Thank you for that. Just the next item is declarations of interest. To receive any declarations of disclosable pecuniary interest and any conflict in respect to any items on the agenda. Is there any? I see none, but if there is, and you remember to state it at that particular point. Number 5, urgent business. There isn't any urgent business, but what I'm going to do, just in terms of the agenda, I'm going to rearrange it slightly. At the moment, according to agenda item 9, corporate risk review is on the public part. Just to make it flow, I'm going to move that to the end of the meeting. So when it comes to number 9, it'll be in the confidential. Are people happy with that?
Yeah.
Okay, thank you. So other than that, I have no other announcements. Number 6, public participation.
Thank you, Chair. We have no public participation.
One day. We even have a seat for them as well.
I'll go sit if you like for a while.
Well, that's it. The next item is, which is one of the main parts of the meeting, and it's on pages 12 to 34, and it's the Treasury Management Turn Report for 24-25. So let me just go to that, and I will ask Simon, our Head of Finance, to speak on this and introduce it.
Thank you. So this is the Treasury Management Outturn Report for the 2024-25 financial year. This is the 3rd report on Treasury in respect to the 24-25 year that comes to this committee. it is required to come to this committee for consideration before it goes to cabinet and then on to council, who will agree to it in time. The key headlines from the report, firstly on paragraph 19 on page 15 of the report, is the performance of the two councils. Both councils' treasury performance exceeded budget in that year, primarily because, sorry if I sound like a broken record, but interest rates stayed higher for longer than originally anticipated, and we also held more balances than originally estimated when the budgets were set. Elsewhere in the report, there are indicators of performance, and you'll observe those in the respective appendices. And performance across the different investment types was very close to benchmark. I think one's above and one's below, but we're talking very small variations in performance. And the other key thing is prudential indicators, which were set at the start of the year, and as demonstrated in the appendix, both councils stayed within the prudential indicators that were set. Happy to take any questions.
Thank you for that. Committee members, any comments and questions for Simon?
Thinking of what, aren't you?
Well, clearly, Simon, you know, it's a very concise and clear report. Any? No, I don't see any. So, well, unless there's any other debate, and I'll go on to the.
I was going to say, I'm
yes,
just going to say it's
Councillor Roberts.
overperforming and as good as ever, really. I think we should thank the officers for their performance.
I totally agree with that.
And pray interest rates stay high.
Let's all start borrowing.
Which way you look at it? Okay, so there's no comments or questions, but I'll just look at read out the recommendations, and there may be some questions or some debate on that. So the recommendations are: the Joint Audit and Governance Committee A notes the Treasury Management Outturn Report for 24-25, considers whether it's satisfactory that the Treasury activities are carried out in accordance with the Treasury Management Strategy and Policy, and finally C, make any comments and recommendation to Cabinet as necessary. So any comments or debate on those recommendations? I see none. Do I have on this? It is going to be voted on separately. So if we start off with South councillors first, I will propose these recommendations, and they are put forward to Cabinet as stated on the report. Second. Thank you, Councillor Dragonetti. Well, those in favour? That's passed for South. Do I have a proposer for Vale? Councillor Piggles. Seconder, Councillor Roberts. Any comments? No. All in favour? That's unanimous. Thank you. So that's been passed. So thank you, Simon. I'll now go on to item 8, which is the internal audit report, and that's on pages 35 to 40. And I'll ask Victoria, our external audit and risk manager, to introduce this.
Thank you. This is the Q2 update report for 25-26. We completed 4 reviews in the quarter, got 2 key financials and 2 advisory reviews. In terms of the key financials, if I start with the general ledger audit, received a substantial assurance rating overall, and we raised 4 actions. There were 2 priority 2 actions which relate to balance sheet reconciliations. So there we found a few inconsistencies in the regularity of the reconciliations, along with a lack of formal process to follow up unreconciled items. Also, lack of formal sign-off of the recs, and no regular spot checks. And then secondly, in terms of the reconciliations, procedures are quite outdated and need to be reviewed and updated. In terms of the second key financial, was accounts receivable. Again, substantial assurance rating overall, and we made 1 priority 2 action, and that was for a formal review and monitor of the level and age of debts across the organisation. We know that service areas are responsible for overseeing the debt recovery process. However, we recommended that head of finance have a formal process to do a sense check and an overall review of the age debts on a periodic basis. In terms of the open actions further down the report, I have presented the information slightly differently this time, hopefully with the aim of making it clear where the aged priority 1 actions lie, in which service and which audits. In terms of the 21 past due policy actions, I have assurance about the progress of majority of those. I'm in regular conversations with the action owners on those, and I'm seeing progress towards their completion. If there's any areas where I would have a bit of concern, that would be on the actions on the building control audit, where I didn't receive any updates this time. So there's 3 actions there. And secondly, on the business continuity audit, where we have 2 actions there with very little movement and a known vacancy in that team as well. So if I was to want further detail on the priority ones, it would be in those areas. But otherwise, generally fairly happy with the updates that I'm getting. Happy to take any questions on the rest of the report.
Okay, thank you, Victoria. Any comments or questions? Councillor Barrow and then Councillor Dragonetti.
Yeah, it's just, I guess, in relation to the open actions, what's the timeline of these? How are they managed? I mean, do you have specific dates for them, or?
When we perform the audit, we agree a practical date for completion, so they can vary depending on the item. The priority ones we'd expect potentially a bit sooner because of the scoring of them and the priority and the risk score. It can vary, and there's some that we know that are long term, so we know from the offset that they're going to be long term. So we agree those with the action owners, so they do vary.
But presumably, right at the beginning, when you assess what the date is, I mean, what proportion of those actions do you resolve within that timeline and within that date?
Oh, that's a good question. I haven't analysed that because I don't really want to know. I fear that wouldn't score very well. But we're getting better. But I think ones to be completed within the timeline would be quite a low percentage.
So connect with that then. I mean, there are no open actions from the last financial year. Well, they all get resolved, and they get within the.
No, I think if you see on the report, there's the ageing of them. So we do have some open actions from previous years. So you'll see we've actually got some that date back to 1920, 38.
5 years ago.
So there's always a conversation about, do we still want these actions? Do we still need to take these actions? Do we need to change them? Do we need to take them away? So I'm constantly reviewing them.
So in mind, is that a concern that someone go back to 2019, 2020?
Yeah.
I was going to say a couple of things on this one. The key table and the key column in the table is the one that Victoria's highlighted in red, which is the 21 priority ones that are still outstanding.
Yeah.
The first thing to say is, certainly at previous meetings of this committee, we've obviously picked up a question about what is management doing about those open actions, and I think we're between myself and Victoria, but we've agreed that we'll be taking the open actions through core SMT or SMT for review prior to them coming here, just to remind SMT that they're on the radar. But it wasn't entirely clear to me necessarily that SMT members, whether the actions work for them, would necessarily know. So we've taken a more proactive step. The question of timeliness is an interesting one, and Victoria will know well that there was a long-standing priority 1 action for me that hadn't been achieved. And actually one of the reasons why it hadn't been achieved, every time I came to look at it, I thought, well, there's no point doing that now. I need to do something else. And I hadn't thought through what I needed to do. So what I was able to agree with Victoria, which was already in place, was an alternative approach.
Mm-hmm.
And I think part of the review with SMT may well trigger discussions about whether that recommendation is still valid or not. If it is still valid, if the issue is still there, is the recommendation still valid? So in my case, the issue was still there, but the recommendation was now invalid. I needed to do something else with it.
Okay.
So I think that will trigger a better discussion on those open items.
I agree.
While we're on this, Councillor Dragonetti, I will come to you just on this particular point. So, Victoria, what hours do you have if an action just stays open-ended? So what powers do you have? What empowerment do you have to actually force things through?
I feel this new process that Simon mentioned will be my most powerful tool. Because at the moment I'm liaising with action owners.
Mhm.
Also, copying in heads of service, but I think that review at SMT level will be the most powerful. And if I can relay specific questions and points that I want SMT to respond either to me on or to you as the committee on, I think that would be the most effective way of doing it.
It would be interesting to see those that get reported SMT, how quickly after that they get resolved.
Yeah.
But the fact that we have to go there isn't, we want to avoid that.
There's some exceptions because health and safety is a prime example. The head of service is very engaged and knows the status, but we just know that they're not quick fixes. So there's some that will still be on there that I'm happy with, and I'm getting the level of engagement, but it's the nature of them. We know they're not going to be solved straight away.
So do you feel you're empowered enough to take that next step if you had to?
Yes, definitely. So the ones I've highlighted to you this evening, the building control and the business continuity, those are the ones I less than I would like, but the others I'm happy with.
Okay.
Yeah.
Sorry, Councillor Cagnetti.
Can I just carry on with that? Just put some flesh on the bones of this. Could you give me an example of what one action point would be? Yes. Now it's difficult to sort of, you talk about action points and really it's difficult to understand what the problem is.
The most common one would be having policies and procedures in place. That's our number one type of finding. So, for example, health and safety.
Yeah.
When we came to do the audit, the majority of the policies were either outdated or they're just no longer relevant to the processes that we follow. So we have an action to review and update those. But health and safety codes, there's 20, 30 of them.
Yes.
So to take the time to write those, that's a long-term action. So that would be an example of
I can understand that.
Yeah.
Not being top priority.
No, they do vary, but the policies and procedures is our most common type of finding. Yeah.
Okay.
Councillor Cagnetti, any other questions?
Yes. I think you said about when we were talking about the accounts receivable, that was the head of the service, is that right? Is responsible for chasing them up and then you'll try to escalate it? No.
The service areas are responsible for progressing the debt recovery. So it lies with the service teams to do that.
Right.
And then my understanding is that as the finance, you would have the oversight of the level that we have across the organisation.
So there's a couple of steps. So in terms of, if you like, automatically generated reminders,
yes,
they would come from the exchequer team. So the exchequer team would do reminders automatically. I think there's a first stage and a second stage reminder. If they are unsuccessful, the debt is, if you like, passed back to the department that originated it. So obviously they know what the customer, or what they wanted, and they have the relationship with them to try and progress resolution of that debt. What the extra step in here is about me having a regular conversation with the manager of the exchequer function about the age debt list, and actually, and it's something ironically we've done informally on a couple of occasions, because on a couple of occasions is, the question's been asking me what's the level of age debt, and I've sort of sat down with the manager and he showed me a very big number, and I went, oh my god. And then when it's explained that 95% of it is actually debt raised this month that isn't due till the end of the month,
right?
And actually we take those out, those three I know about, those are on an arrangement, that leaves me with three, and that's the sort of level of conversation I've had. So I think I'm not concerned at the level of debt overall from those conversations, but what I am concerned about, which is why the recommendation is really helpful, is keeping those debts that on the sort of debts I've just explained on the radar of the relevant manager to make sure they don't lose sight of them.
Yes. Do we use any external debt collecting agencies? Is there a sort of bring that to some legal team? Do you never need?
In respect to the debt in this example, which is accounts receivable, i.e. non-council tax, non-business rates, non-housing benefits, I don't believe we do. The reality is our debt, if we think about a lot of our services people pay for up front.
Yeah.
So there's not the actual value of our income that's derived through invoicing isn't as great as people might think. We do use such agencies for council tax, business rates, and so on. And if we've exhausted all other opportunities to avoid doing so.
Yeah, sure. Okay, thank you.
Okay, thank you. Any other questions? Councillor Roberts?
Yes, I kind of got two. In the past, we used the manager who had the actions you'd discuss, and the manager would set the date by which they felt it was achieved. Is that still happening? Because otherwise, it wouldn't be outstanding until that date had gone past. So do we not run that system anymore? And then my second question was, you raised the fact that some spot checks are not being done. That worries me because that's the sort of way that an outside auditor comes in and they do spot checks.
Mhm.
And it's usually 10% of the books. And if you're not doing spot checks in-house, that makes us quite vulnerable to external audit. So can you explain a little further on the spot checks on the
Yeah.
ledger?
So in terms of the first question, the process is still the same. In terms of the dates, I'll work with the action owner to agree a date. If they say something that's really silly, then I might challenge it. But generally, they've got a better idea of how it fits into the rest of their work. On the spot checks, they do happen. Our observation is that they're not happening at the regularity that we would recommend. So we would recommend all of the different checks and balances happening every month, whereas we observed in the audit that maybe 6 months might go by and then all of the checks, all of the recs, all of the sign-offs will be done at that point, whereas we would, best practice is to do it every month.
Keep on top of it.
Yeah, I think so. I would support that. So that's our observation. We didn't really have any issues when we looked into the detail of the recs with what was happening in the numbers. It's more around the process side that we were concerned about.
Councillor Gills?
I was just asking a question about direction of travel. So do you think overall management response to your work is improving, or is it stagnated?
No, it's got a lot better. It's really improved. The numbers don't necessarily reflect that, but the level of engagement I'm getting, I mean, I've only got maybe 2 or 3 action owners that I know haven't come back to me, and that's just amazing compared to where it was even 6 months ago. So if I can get to the next level of SMT getting engaged, I think we're going to be at a really good place. I think it'll still take a little bit of time to clear the backlog, but hopefully the newer ones will get cleared a lot quicker.
And just a small follow-up question.
Yeah.
The kind of newly insourced services. So for example, if payroll was brought back in-house, for example, are they struggling? I mean, I know new staff was recruited and some sort of staff was brought back. Are those areas typically doing well now? Because quite a few of them have been around for years, 2 years, so haven't they? So.
Yeah. Generally payroll, I think the struggle they're having is actually having enough capacity to deal with the actions. So I think we've got quite a few. When we come to do the next payroll audit, I expect to have a lot from the last audit still open, because I think they've got so many different projects on. I think that's their challenge at the moment. But when we come to audit the process, I think overall I'm fairly happy with it. There's just a few process things that we pick up each time, and procedures and things like that. And they've got quite a few open on payroll. That I know.
That's driven the question there.
Yeah, exactly. So I've got good engagement from the people and culture team. I think their challenge is having enough capacity to get around to those actions with everything else that they've got going on. So that's why we're looking at it. We looked at the payroll, the July payroll, because we know they had an upgrade of the system. So the auditor went in and looked at the July payroll just to kind of sense check that month's payroll. We're happy with that. And then we'll go back again in Q4. So we're doing the audits that we need to, but we're also treading carefully and making sure we're as efficient as we can, because we know they're very busy. So,
Thank you. Simon, I think you want to come in.
I was just going to contextualise the table on the table to do what I meant to do, and I answered the question before. Is obviously we're talking about 21 priority 1 actions outstanding over probably about 6 or 7 years.
to 1920, yeah.
And
Well, actually, no, back to 22-23.
22-23, and you're probably doing 15 to 20 audits a year that might generate sort of 5 to 10 recommendations per audit. So I think at that level, that number of that number of outstanding actions doesn't feel a huge number. On the flip side, they're priority one actions, which means that a one in that column is not a good answer. But it should be contextualised in the amount of recommendations that are being set.
I mean, I think it would be nice. It's nice to see this data here, but it would also be nice to see how many of these open actions are resolved in the next meeting, so you get an idea of it moving along and progressing, I guess.
Yeah, so in
Is that there in the table?
in section 13, so we raised 10 this quarter and we closed 16.
Thank you. Any other questions?
Yep.
Mike.
Yes, Victoria, just rolling back to page 37, the anti-fraud and corruption policy.
Yeah.
So that was last reviewed in October 2022. Was that a complete rewrite or was it just a review of the existing, do you know?
I'm not sure what happened in October 2022, but this review came about at the request of the head of Legal and Democratic Services, who wanted us to review the policy and compare and contrast to other authorities to see what we needed to improve on or where we're doing okay. So it was at the request of the head of legal. Yeah.
So this is almost a consultative.
It was
piece
an
of work,
advisory,
isn't it?
yeah.
And this was back in 22.
No,
No.
the last time the policy was formally reviewed was 2022.
Yeah.
But we were doing a review this time, so this quarter, so in 2025.
Right, okay, and that's where it says next review due in December 2025.
So internally, that team will then have that policy to review in December, but we've come in before that and we've done our own review of it.
Yeah, okay. I'm just conscious that fraud by its nature is constantly changing. It's people don't really rob banks anymore. They find other ways of doing it, and so reviews of the existing will take you so far, but sometimes things need to be fundamentally addressed, and just whether they're looking at that as well, really.
Yeah, I think that's why the review was requested, actually, just to do a bit of a benchmark and get a fresh pair of eyes on it to see what we're doing well, and also outside of the policy, what information we put on the internet, on the website, that kind of thing, making sure that we're doing everything that we should be.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Any other comments or questions? Seeing none. The recommendation is just members review the results of recent internal audit work and monitor progress on management actions. Before we go on to note this, I just want to say, Victoria, thank you for making some of the adjustments to the reporting. It's very clear, and we do appreciate that. So this is really for noting. So I'm happy to propose that we, obviously Victoria's taken on our comments. Do I have a seconder? Thank you, Councillor Burrows. All in favour? Thank you. That's unanimous. Thank you very much. Thank you, Victoria. The next item is 9, but as I said, I'm moving that to the confidential, so I don't have to go to confidential session now. So I'll move on to item 10, which is the 2024-25 annual joint audit and government's report to council, which is pages 41, 47. And I'll hand over to Simon.
Thank you. So, particularly for those new to the committee, this report is a fairly new report. We did this for the first time last year, and this will be the second time we've done it. We're doing this because it's best practice for audit committees to prepare such a report and present it to council, and as such was recommended to us when we had external training for the committee provided by SIPA when the new committee formed after the 2023 elections. So the report is effectively a look back at the activity of the committee. All the reports that the committee received during the report pertinent, I should say. You probably noticed there's a slight slip over between one of the dates, but all the committees pertinent to the 24-25 financial year and what was considered are shown in a table in Appendix 1. There are also the thoughts of the two leaders, two co-chairs, On
Thanks for the
there.
promotion. I'll take it.
I recommend you don't.
The two co-chairs of the council, and unfortunately put Mike in a slightly difficult position because obviously he only took over in May. Look back on the sort of summary and key achievements. I think one of the things I would say in terms of that as well is to draw out is again mindful in particular of the new faces on the committee. I think a lot was achieved in the first 2 years, particularly after having had the training. I think that helped us focus on what we need to do, and I think we with quite a turnover of new members, I think we want to build on that with the new members going forward, which is why there's a reference to member development. And I'd include that in its widest sense, include Mike, obviously, as a member of the committee, not a member of the council, in terms of where we can take that forward.
Thank you. Is there any comments or questions regarding this report? Mike?
Who's responsible for presenting this to council?
It'll be for South Council. I will present,
And I'll be Val.
and my council Pickles will present to Vale.
Right, okay.
So if there's any comments additionally that you want us to mention specifically, I'm more than happy to do that.
Right, okay. No, I wasn't sure because Simon's item on the agenda, but I think it's the monitoring officer who's generally responsible for the governance side of things. So I thought it was going to be either one of those two, but it's you two. So
Yes, so
that's fine.
so
So chairs, you're doing it.
as chairs, we will
Focused
speak on
on that.
behalf of the committee.
Yeah.
And Councillor Pickles got a list of some of our achievements, because this is all other departments and committees actually present back to council, and this is why we decided, we don't like being left out, because we're just this is an important committee,
Yeah.
audit and governance, because it is a fundamental part of the council. Hence why it's our opportunity to say what the committee has done, because, although councillors can join in remotely or even attend this meeting, not everyone's aware. So it's an opportunity to tell us what this committee has done, and also for them to ask any questions. So if there is anything that you want us to specifically highlight, by saying training is part of it, we're obviously, there's a lot has happened. We've changed auditors, and we've obviously challenged the council and the audit team, the risk team, in terms of are they doing their role in the manner that we expect. So as a committee, I think we're performing, but with external training, I think we can be better.
By the way, to say, I totally support that view. I mean, I think that one of the problems with JAG is that very few members really know understands what it does and how important it is. Because it's really the only opportunity where a lot of things come together from a governance and a process perspective. Yeah, and particularly really important work that Yvonne and Victoria do, which wouldn't otherwise get any visibility to members.
So any comments or questions?
By the way, I wrote the summary of the report, having not been to any of the meetings. However, I did read the Simon's paper, and so I am obviously already asked this question, but anyone's got any comments or just feedback via email to us, and we'll factor them into our reports when we get to make them.
Councillor Roberts, you have your hand.
Yes, I genuinely don't know where they reside. They may reside in the Constitution, but are there limits where the officers can't take delegated decisions, and then above that amount of money, they have to refer it to portfolio holder, to members and other people? And if that detail is available, which I'm sure it is, I was just sitting here thinking, I don't know where it is. Is it in the Constitution?
There is I'm actually part of the Constitution Committee, and we're meeting October the 6th, and we'll certainly raise that. But I do believe there are certain limits that, depending on your level of responsibility, seniority, you can sign off, but a certain amount does need to get signed off by a portfolio holder or council, or as full council.
There's a scheme of delegation in the Constitution, that spells out what heads of service, what is delegated to heads of service, what they can and can't do. And then in financial procedure rules, that spells out, the cabinet and council responsibilities in respect to setting and varying budgets.
And this is why having the processes in audit is so important, to make sure, even if it is below a certain limit, it's still done in the correct manner.
So my question was, do we get a report of that to Audit and Governance Committee? Because I don't think I've ever seen
The reports of what specifically?
the ones that go over the threshold that have had to be approved through the portfolio holders.
I don't think you get that as a report to this committee unless through an audit of activity undertaken, it was discovered that there were issues doing that. I mean, I think that's just normal council business.
And some key decisions can be called in by scrutiny or from JAG. So those key decisions or big decisions are circulated to councillors, so they can call it in, and so can the chairs. But to answer your question, has there been specific reports? I don't recall that. I'm not sure whether it would be useful to have that. That's more for this committee to debate. But there has been any issues at the moment. If there had been, I'm sure we can ask for that to come to this committee.
We can take that offline during our conversation.
Yeah.
What we say is, if there was a persistent failure or repeat failure of a particular governance process, and that was picked up by Victoria's team, then that's something that would come to this committee. However, the actual individual transactions, we're not an operational committee. We're looking at.
I'm just thinking
process
those are all
governance.
the decisions that
Yeah.
usually handle quite a lot of money. That's all.
But as a committee, we do have the power to call anyone to this committee to answer questions.
Yeah.
So if there is anything that ever we're not too sure about, we can call that person to come in.
Yeah.
Okay.
So any other comments or questions?
We should do it one day.
We can.
Because I understand what you're saying, but I mean, literally, there are hundreds of these that come through that that I would see in a year, and that's just as a portfolio holder or perhaps cabinet, and then council. But the officers do, presumably 10 times as many as that. So it would. But I think the key bit is if audit identified that an approval for something, a decision had been taken at the inappropriate level, I think that's the bit that would then need to come through. So, perhaps Simon was signing things off, but it hadn't gone through to cabinet that it should have done, or full council.
Yeah, that's what I was thinking. Because I mean, it's in the constitution, so one assumes it should all
Yes,
happen as it.
there's a really long section on delegated authority, and it talks about functions, and then it talks about monetary value, etc. as well.
Okay. Thank you for that. I don't see any other comments or questions. So the recommendation is as stated. So what we'll do is, I don't see there's any other comments or adjustments. So we will present as co-chairs in our respective council. We will present the report and take any questions. So this is really for noting, and just because it's two separate councils, I will take a vote on it on separate levels. So for South, do I have a proposer? Yeah, I'll second. In favour? Thank you, that's approved. And for Vale, do I have a proposer? Councillor Roberts, seconder. Councillor Barrows, all in favour? Thank you, that's unanimous as well.
I thought Councillor Pickles was going to be marking his own homework then.
No, I stood back.
Yeah, that's what I did as well. But unfortunately, there's only two spots at the moment, so I had to. So thank you for that. And thank you, Simon. Now on to item 11, which is new global internal audit standards in the UK public sector and updated internal audit charter. It's on page 48 to 51, and I think we received a supplementary additional information as well. So Victoria, I think Victoria, you should introduce this.
And you're right, yes. Apologies. Appendix 1 is the updated charter, and that's on the hard copy which you were sent this afternoon. So the report provides an overview of the new global internal audit standards, which replace the public sector internal audit standards, and they came into effect on the 1st of April. Although we adopt them as of the 1st of April, we have the full financial year to demonstrate compliance. So by the time I put the annual report together for the July committee next year, I expect to be compliant with the new standards. The committee is asked to review the report and also approve the updated charter in Appendix 1. Next steps for me following this report are I need to go away and update our internal audit manual and strategy, undertake a self-assessment against the new standards and see where there are gaps. And then with those gaps, develop a quality assurance and improvement programme, which I will present back to you at a later date once ready, and create a plan for an external assessment, which is a requirement in the standards. So look at options of doing that, hopefully at a low cost. So yes, happy to take any questions. The appendix is using a template from the IAA, Institute of Internal Auditors. So it's a standardised template, has been tailored for South and Vale, so it's a joint charter. Thank you.
Thank you, Victoria. Committee members, any comments?
So
Councillor Burrow?
minor point of confusion, I guess, on page, I think it's 51, the paragraph 14, 15 said there's no financial or legal implication, but in the box at the top there may be a yes, no.
It's just that we've signed it off. In the box at the top, we've considered it.
Okay, not a fan. Yeah.
I have one minor impertinent question, but who's going to audit you the fact that you've changed your process and procedures? Well, you might have homework.
That's where the external assessment comes in, I think.
Okay.
Councillor Gregonetti.
I would like to congratulate Victoria on her promotion from internal audit and risk manager to a chief audit executive. It sounds very grand.
Yes, very good.
Congratulations.
You'll find it on my LinkedIn.
Any other comments?
But it's just,
Yes.
is it going to make your life easier in terms of you'll be able to more effectively do your job, or is it going to burden you with
I think there's
more bureaucracy? Or
I think initially
or
it's a lot of admin because I need to check
Yeah.
where we comply and where we don't, and it's quite a long self-assessment. But it's probably well due to do that anyway. There's a few areas which I want to add some work, but actually I welcome them. So one of the changes you'll see when you see the report, it's to report more detail on the root cause of findings. So we actually have to explicitly specify those, and there's a requirement to link in with the organisation's risks and objectives. So I think we're doing some of those already, but it's just making sure they're more explicit in the reporting. And I welcome those. It will create more work, but I think we'll get used to them quite quickly.
So,
Councillor Gills.
can I ask a question about when we think we'll be compliant? Is there a target set on us other than having an internal target?
I think my target is to make sure by the end of the financial year that we tick all the boxes. And if we haven't done an external assessment, to have a plan for one, and to have a quality assurance improvement programme in place. We might not have finished all the items on there, but we need to have a plan to be presented to committee with a timeline for those. So that's my target for the end of the year. There's some things that we're already doing. So we've already tweaked the report template to make sure we're now adding the root causes in. But yeah, I think having everything, knowing where our gaps are and having a plan to address those by the end of the year seems quite a sensible target.
I've got a question, and it's actually for Councillor Coleman. As you're here, and obviously your name's on at top portfolio holder on part of this. What are your views on this? I'd like to hear your views and whether you think this is going to help.
So I think it will, and if it does nothing else other than ensure that we actually start, review our procedures and refresh them, I think that's the benefit. So I suspect that this is probably just other words of what probably we already have been doing or should have been doing, and so it gathers that. So yeah, I welcome it.
So this is really just following best practice.
It is, and it's What's different about it is these standards are global, as they say, whereas previously we were following the public sector standards. Now these are global, but the SIPA have put an application note in of saying, right, this is what the standard says, but this is in reality, this is how it applies to the public sector. So it's sort of like a help guide with how to interpret it for the public sector. So everybody in the internal audit profession should be adhering to those standards.
Councillor Peters.
Just last one from me is I know that you get a regular updates on progress or taking report, but when you do, it'd be good to know if you think there are any large gaps or material gaps with your most so we can help you, or is there any way we can
I
help
think
with
the
it?
biggest gap that I know about already is we haven't done an external assessment, and
Okay.
it's trying to find a cost-effective way of doing that, which I think we've talked about previously. I think a peer review might be something we'd need to look into, because otherwise it's an external company coming in, and obviously there's a cost associated to that. So that's the gap so far. The other ones are probably easier to address.
Just before you come in, Simon, just on that particular point, obviously putting money to one side, I know it's going to cost, but if you were to have an external company come in for assessment, when would that be?
I don't actually know at this point. I probably have to look and read more into the standards about when they recommend you do it. There's probably most value once I've got the quality assurance plan put together, because then I know where the gaps are, and I think it probably wouldn't be so helpful doing it now initially. I think probably in a year's time, once we're a bit more towards compliance, I would expect.
Simon, you want to come in?
I was going to make a couple of points just in terms of external validation, and I've failed to do something Victoria asked me to do, but there's a good reason for it, which is I was going to ask my Oxfordshire colleagues what they do or intend to do off the back of this. Unfortunately, you probably imagine all Section 151 Oxfordshire discussions are on one topic at the moment, so we can get past this hurdle. We can then think about what we normally do for a bit, hopefully. So I will take that away as an action, and we'll find out what Oxfordshire colleagues do. I was going to make a general point that I think, if I think back to when I started in local government, I did 3 months as a trainee accountant. I did 3 months in internal audit in 1998, and the audit I did, the way audit was set up and structured and performed, and what it looked at, is a world apart from what Victoria and the team do now in the context. And I think this is just an ever an ongoing evolution of internal audit, just reflecting where it needs to be in an organisation. If I look at, on page 50, the comments about requires communication about, significant control reaches and robust root cause, that's exactly what it needs. It doesn't need, we audited 50 things and found 49.5 of them were fine. It needs, the problem we didn't find is this is the issue. And also linking it to council objectives, which is something we've started doing in the last 2 or 3 years anyway, isn't it? More than we had done before.
Exactly.
So I think internal audit continues to evolve. It's not, and we, globally and locally, it's not doing the big audits of main accounting systems, sample checking thousands of transactions. It's spreading its wings. It's looking in other parts of the organisation, looking to add real value. And we do it here, and I think this is a reflection of that overall direction of travel.
Thank you, Simon. Any other comments or questions? I see none. I'll just go through the recommendations. To note the update on the new global internal audit standards. B, approve the updated internal audit charter. And C, note the quality assurance and improvement programme. They're the recommendations. Any debate? The only thing I was going to say is I think we should approve these, but also allow Victoria to, the means and empowerment to make those, implement them, as you said earlier. So if there's no other debate, I will propose that. Do I have a seconder?
I'll second.
Thank you, Councillor Fields. All in favour? That's unanimous, and that's for both councils. So thank you for that, Victoria. I'll now move on to work programme item 12, which is on pages 52 to 56. Lucy, would you like to introduce this?
Thank you, Chair. Since the last meeting, apart from the items you discussed or we're about to discuss at this meeting, there's no updates. Other than I believe that the proposed 9th of December meeting won't be going ahead, is that correct?
Yeah.
One of the things we did discuss, the 9th of December meeting isn't going ahead as a JAG committee meeting, but we should use that time slot for a training session. So I think the fact that it's in there, I think we should do that.
So just to update, effectively the auditor has come back. This is the external auditor, because the 9th of December was going to be signing off the whichever year's account, this year's, isn't it, 24-25 accounts, for which the deadline, just to reassure members, is the end of February. They thought they would get it done sooner than they were going to. They're not going to now, so we'll have to come back for another date for that. But the thought was that we actually keep that date in the diary for committee members for us to consider training, running some training on that time.
I think that's certainly worthwhile, especially as it's in our diaries already. So I think we're happy with that. Anything else, Lucy, in regards to the work programme? And otherwise I'll ask the committee for feedback.
No, that's.
Thank you. Any comments or questions, or anyone want to ask any updates for any of these items we've got planned, or anybody wants to suggest any others?
Yes. I want to suggest a quarterly risk review on the 27th of January. I'm trying to do quarterlies with you as well as a full half yearly report. So it would be quite good, I think, in January to do a quarterly risk summary of where we are.
That's a good idea. So
short reports.
we can put you in that for 27th.
Well, it's a bit long, but it's good. I think it'd be good to see the direction of travel.
Yeah. Okay, brilliant. Thank you. Any other comments? There are a lot coming up, and I just want to make sure that, first of all, they are going to come through, and I want to make sure that we don't have too much on a certain evening, because I want to make sure that we have enough time to discuss them. But we can look at that when the reports come in. But it looks like we have a packed work schedule.
Yeah, there's a lot
going on, and I'm sure we'll be told if anything needs to change. But we have got a couple of dates in the diary, which if we do need to, we can split some of the work. Or the other alternative is we can have additional meetings. So it's not all just always set in stone what that we have. We can have corporate additional meetings if we need to.
So the thought occurs, given that the deadline for the accounts is the end of February, is whether we consider, if we agree a date with the external auditor that's in February, some of the January stuff that doesn't. I'm thinking, for example, Treasury Manager has to come to January. It's got to go to Cabinet and Council. There will be other items in January that could potentially slip. We don't want too many going onto an agenda with the accounts, but if a couple of items makes the January meeting less bad, then I don't think that's a problem.
Yeah, because January meeting is quite packed, but yeah, I'm happy with that. But as I say, we've got a bit of time on that one. Okay. So, and I don't see. Oh, Councillor Roberts.
I seem to remember that we did used to have a fraud report of cases of fraud that we detected. I haven't seen that for many years, and I kind of presume that means we haven't had any fraud for many years.
Who would like to take that one?
I don't. It's not been in my time as being the lead officer on the committee that we've done that.
Yeah.
I remember the case. It was one of the operators stealing money out of the parking meters.
We can
It's
take
a
that
long
away.
time ago.
We can take that away and check into the terms of reference. I've got the terms of reference in front of me.
Lucy can make a note of that.
How long ago that was.
And then what we'll do in regards to that, we'll circulate it by email.
Yeah.
But I mean, I'm assuming that we haven't had any major, well, it wasn't a major fraud, but it was a systematic fraud, and it came up very gently in the returns until it got to a stage where it wasn't feasible that they were collecting as little as they were stating they were collecting.
If it's appropriate, as I say, it'll be. I'm sure Lucy will circulate it by email. But if we do need to have that come in, we can get it into one of our meetings. But we'll come back to you on that one.
Okay.
Mike,
just very swiftly following up on that, if we're doing a new policy, then measurement, as in how much fraud is occurring and how it's being detected and so on, ought to be in there, which would give a basis then for coming to us, I would have thought. say this is what's happening, this is what's been detected, and this is what we're doing about it.
So, but if I may, I think when you're doing your comparison, it'd be interesting to see what other authorities, not just checking necessarily their policy, but what they do reporting wise.
Global.
Yeah, I'll see if it was covered in the audit. If not, I'll get the auditor to go back and look at that aspect of it. Yeah.
Okay, thank you. Any other comments, questions? I see none. I propose that we note this work programme and we pencil in the 9th of December as a training session for the committee. And if there's any other updates, that will be circulated by email. So I'll propose that. Can I have a seconder? Thank you, Councillor Piggles. All in favour?
Can we maybe think of it being virtual?
I'm sure we can do both.
It's just
Okay.
9th of December.
The training
Quite a busy time.
can be done
But
both.
we could offer it both, yeah.
Yeah, the training will be both.
Okay, I'm just thinking of Christmas.
Mince and pies.
We can bring mince pies.
Mould them up.
I'll be in person. I'll be in person.
I think training flows better.
You can sing some carols.
There's Champions League matches on that night as well, actually. So.
Swiftly moving on. Swiftly moving on. So we are come to the end of the public part. So we do need to vote to go on to exclude the public. So I propose that we go on to public to discuss the final agenda items. So I propose that we go to confidential session. Can I have a seconder? Councillor Roberts, all in favour? Thank you. That's passed. So we will go into confidential session, but before